hold on.
Oh, sorry.
You're live. Thank you, Chair.
Welcome to our virtual Council Functions Committee meeting. For the benefit of those who may be watching via YouTube, I'm Darren Wolford and I'm a councillor for Watford Borough Council. I chair Council Functions Committee. Other committee members present are Councillors Aga Dighton, Jane Johnson, Maggie Parker, Mark Watkin, Mo Mills and Nazarene Shah. The officers present are Terry Baldwin, Group Head of Human Resources, and Alan Garside, Democratic Services Officer, who will be taking the minutes. Please can I ask all members and officers to turn off their videos, as this enhances the functionality of the system. Also to mute yourselves unless called upon to speak. If a member wishes to speak, please could they indicate by pressing the hand sign on their screen. At the end of the debate on the item, I will ask each member in turn how they wish to vote. We will now proceed through with the agenda as published. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
There are no apologies, Chair.
Oh, thank you. There are no apologies for absence. Agenda item number 2, disclosures of interest. Does any member have any disclosures to declare?
I don't think I have a real disclosure of interest, but I've been advised to just make the following observation. As the portfolio holder responsible for human resources, I have been in discussion with Terry and his team about the fact this procurement was progressing, so I was giving updates on it. I played no role whatever in the selection of the actual successful bidder. Well, successful if we go ahead with them. So I have had no influence on the actual decision, but I ought to just make it clear if people query that yes, I have been aware of this until it's come to here. That's all.
Thank you for that, Mark. I think that should be fine. Agenda item number 3, minutes. Do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of February 2020? I will ask you each in turn to show that you're happy with the minutes.
Agreed.
Aga?
Agreed.
Jane?
Agreed.
Maggie?
Agreed.
Mark?
Agreed.
Mo?
Agreed.
Nazarene?
Agreed.
Right. The minutes are agreed and will be signed when we return to the Town Hall. Agenda item number 4, conduct of the meeting. We will go through the agenda as published. Agenda item number 5, payroll and HR systems procurement. I now will ask Terry Baldwin to present his report.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just take you briefly through the report and give you an overview of the process. The current contract with the payroll provider Zellis ends on the 23rd of March 2021, and to ensure that we give ourselves adequate time to get a new contract in place by that date, a procurement process was undertaken and ran from the 7th of February 2020, closing on the 31st of March 2020. During that time, we had some initial interest in the bid and the tender that we'd put out, but at the closing date, we had 3 bids received. Of those bids, one of the bidders was subsequently seen to only be tendering for a HR system and had not put forward any financial details or how they could run a payroll, and were therefore excluded from the process. That left 2 main bidders, which was Zellis, who are the current contract holder, and a bid Midland HR, MHR, and a new system, iTrent. The bids were subject to a rigorous evaluation process, taking some weeks to go through, with a number of further follow-up questions asked. And then the all the bids were then evaluated, and coming out of the evaluation scores, the highest bidder in both terms of cost and or the highest scoring bidder in terms of cost and quality was Midland HR. It is therefore the recommendation, as detailed within this report, that the award is given to Midland HR, and that would then require a new transfer to a new payroll provider and also a new HR system, iTrent, which would be effective from the 24th of March 2021. Within their bid, Midland MHR detailed a implementation period which would commence from the 1st of July to allow adequate time for data to be transferred from Zellis to them. As part of that implementation period, there is a requirement for what we refer to as 3 parallel pay runs, which means that Midland would, at the same time as Zellis, run a pay run just to see that the data is accurate and correct, ready for transfer to Midland to go live with paying staff members and other external bodies from April 2021. So the first live payroll by Midland would be from April 2021. There are extensive checks that will be in place with each of those parallel runs to make sure the data is accurate and that the payroll can go live from April 2021. Should there be any problems with the parallel runs, then we do have the option to continue with Zellis. However, that would be an additional.
They are, yeah.
Live streaming is on.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. We can continue.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members? I have one question from Mark.
No, it's not a question, actually, Chair. It's just more of an observation. Zellis, and I feel like Terry will remind me, are a sort of new version of a very large corporate multinational, well, not sure multinational, but they're really geared to very large corporate clients. And in a way, the fit between the council and Zellis, as I'm now going to call them, hasn't been perfect. I'm not saying they gave us a bad service, but they're not the sort of profile customer that they would go out to seek. They'd much rather deal with a big sort of, Marks and Spencer or somebody. So the point I'm going to go on to rather clumsily is that by choosing a slightly more focused partner, it just means that they have a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve. The size of our payroll is frankly not big. It has some complexities because we're doing payroll work for parish councils as well as our own, and indeed the the crematorium. So we have, in a sense, a slightly complex world for a fairly small number of people to be paid. So having somebody who understands us and takes us, if you like, seriously is a big asset. Sorry if that's gone on a bit, but and Terry may want to add a comment on that, but I think that just helps put it into context.
Would you like to comment on that, Terry? I've got Jane with a question afterwards as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I understand the point Councillor Watkin is making. Zellis were or are, I'm not sure whether they still are, I think they are, part of the Northgate Group, and the Northgate Group, who were the payroll provider initially, are a multinational organisation, and sometime last year they switched that over to Zellis, who are mainly their UK, I believe their UK provider. So they look at organisations within the UK. I can't comment on the type of clients they bid for, as I don't understand that part of their business. I do know that Northgate had many international clients alongside others. The point for MHR is that they are very well versed with the public sector, and a significant amount of their business, they said to us during the presentations that a significant amount of their business does come from the public sector and local authorities. So they are well versed in the provision of payroll to local authorities and the type of information that is required by local authorities.
Are you happy with that, Mark?
Absolutely, Chair. Yes, I mean, Terry and I have discussed this anyway, so I'm no way going to be challenging this decision, that's for sure.
Right, okay, thank you, Mark. Jane, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I've got a sort of a two-parter or two bits of question. First of all, I wanted to find out, so Zelis, were there any particular issues that we've had with the service they've given us so far that MHR can improve on? Because clearly within that bidding process, MHR have come out ahead of Zelis. So what is it that MHR can do better than Zelis? And the second part is that MHR have come out better on costs as well, but I couldn't quite tell from the information on there whether that total cost quoted of the 490,000, does that also include the period of time where we're having to pay two providers for about 8 months? And in addition to that cost, also Zelis are going to charge for releasing information to MHR. Do we not know what that cost is? Because it's a little difficult to tell. And I suppose, sorry to add on to the end of that bit, assuming the double payment for that period of time and also the costs paid to Zelis to release the information to MHR, what is the difference then in cost between the two contracts if we're saying MHR is cheaper?
Terry, would you like to reply?
Yes, thank you. There were a number of questions in there, so I will try to ensure I answer all parts. The first answer in terms of the difference, and when evaluating the tenders, it was very clear and made very clear to us as part of the procurement process that we only evaluate the tenders that have been put forward and the basis of what has been put forward. So we evaluated the cost, and I'll come on to cost again later. So the cost submitted by both companies, and then the quality. And the quality was assessed by finance, by HR, by IT, and also by service users. And when it's evaluated, it is looked at the details they've put forward, the clarification questions that have been asked, and then the systems that were demonstrated to us as part of the tender process. What came back, and to answer the question about what is different, the iTrent system was felt to be far more intuitive, user-friendly, more up-to-date, and in line with what we had put forward in the tender documentation. So there was a preference for MHR in terms of the scoring on the data that they had provided for us. In terms of, you asked the question, did we have any issues with Zelis? I first of all have to say that they were not taken into account in the tender process, because it can only be, as I said earlier, it can only be based on the information that is provided as part of that tender. However, in answering your question, there were some issues with Zelis previously in 2016, I believe, which were then subject to a project to get back to, as they called it, go to green. All of those issues were satisfactorily resolved, and Zelis were providing a very good service and are providing a very good service to us at this time. In terms of the cost, we have added in whole life costs for MHR compared to whole life cost over the same period for Zelis. And again, that's based on the tender documentation. So we'll include the implementation plan and payment to MHR from the contract date, if indeed that is what's agreed. So if you approve this decision today, we then enter into the legal contractual terms and the discussion about when the payments actually start. MHR have said that they believe it is due from the 1st of July. Our tender stated that we believe payment should be made from when the contract starts on 24th of March. We have taken into account those additional payments as part of the whole life cost for MHR. So we are attempting as far as possible to look at like-for-like cost. The other issue you raised about the potential transfer of information from Zelis to MHR, there is within the contract terms a duty to I can't remember the official name, I apologise, but it's a duty to support and to provide that information to MHR, but it does not state whether there will be a cost attached to that or not. We are estimating that there will be a cost, and we have put a budget, but that is not included within the like-for-like cost, as we have through the tender process anticipated what those costs will be over a 5-year period, and as they are unknown for Zellis, it is unreasonable to try and put a figure in as to what it might be. It may be more or less than what we've said. We have allocated a budget of 10,000, which we believe is some way towards those additional costs. I hope that answers the questions.
Are you okay with that, Jane?
Well, I just wanted to say the cost that Zellis may or may not charge, why have we not asked for that now? Because it does seem that how can we make a decision if they come back and make a large, a very large charge? Then could that swing the cost savings that MHR are providing? If we don't know what those costs are, we're being asked to make a decision on something we don't know. So could that not swing it the other way?
We can't take into account. Sorry, Chair. I hope it's okay. I answer. My apologies for jumping in. The procurement is based on the cost over a 5-year period for providing payroll and HR services, and that is what we have had to evaluate. So it is the cost of what are the license fees over the year, how much does it cost to run the system, and any implementation. Normally within a contract there is exit requirements, and we can't speak to Zellis about exit costs without knowing for certain that we will be exiting, which is why it's unknown. The previous contract that was agreed back in 2016, prior to me joining, did not specify what exit costs may be. Therefore, we cannot at this stage understand what they may be, but we are anticipating they will be some. We do not expect them to be significant. The amount that has been allocated, a budget of 10,000, if that was added to the Zellis cost, or even to the Zellis cost, it will be more expensive for Zellis, and Zellis are already they are more expensive than MHR for the 5-year period. So if I added further cost to them, it would make them more expensive on a like-for-like basis. If we weren't paying those transfer costs and said we need to deduct that or to take that into account, we would then not be looking at the like-for-like cost over the 5-year period. So what would the cost of providing the service be by MHR compared to the cost of providing the service by Zellis? And the cost by MHR is cheaper than the cost by Zellis for that 5-year period. And that's the procurement advice and guidance as to how we evaluate the cost. It is strictly the cost of providing the service for that 5-year period.
Check if that's okay.
I was just
Sorry.
If Jane wants to come back, obviously she has.
Mark, can I just ask Jane if she's okay with it?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, so long as we're not, I suppose my concern was just that we're not leaving ourselves open to let Zellis coming in and asking for some exorbitant amount. I mean, I suppose there has to be a degree, as you say, that if there's a contract to a certain extent, just, as I say, it was just a concern that the outgoing provider, were to charge something exorbitant, but I guess there must be checks and balances to prevent that from happening. So, no, thank you very much for the answer.
Yeah, very understandable, Jane, very understandable. Mark, yes, please.
Yeah, all I was going to say was, and Jane's right to raise questions on this because clearly it is, if you like, a bit of an unknown. I mean, first of all, Zellis are not fighting to keep our business. So, yeah, that's a small point. But the key point, and I think that Terry made, is that the new system is more intuitive, it's better suited to what we want to do. So we're looking at a long-term relationship here. I know I said 5 years, but if we get it right, this could carry on forever. Not forever, that's an exaggeration, but there's no reason to think that after 5 years we would necessarily want to change. But we do know that we're not entirely happy with the cellar system. It's clunky. And although Terry was very politic, there have been historical problems in the way some of our work was queried. I know it's a few years ago, but to say they were blameless would not be true either. So I think there's a whole mix of things, and cost is certainly a key one, but it's not the only determinant why we think we should pay. That's all.
Terry, would you like to say anything on Mark's comments?
Thank you, Chair. The only comment is Mark is of course correct. However, just to reiterate for the committee that going through the procurement process, we do evaluate the information that is submitted as part of that tender process, and it is that information that results in the final scores being taken. And the Midland system was seen to be better in terms of quality, and the overall price was more competitive and slightly below budget for what we have for the 5-year period. So that's why the recommendation is to make the award to MHR.
Thank you, Terry. Do we have any more questions for Terry? I take that as a no. The recommendation is that the council awards the payroll and HR system contract to MHR. Is this agreed? I will ask each member in turn. Aga.
Agreed.
Jane.
Agreed.
Maggie.
Agreed.
Mark.
Agreed.
Mo.
Agreed.
Nazreen.
Agreed.
I agree. The recommendation is agreed. The meeting is now concluded. Right, can I just say thank you very much to Terry for his report, Alan for doing the minutes and his support, and Sandra for her support, and all my fellow councillors for being present for this meeting. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Darren.
Yeah, all the best. Look after yourselves.
All the best. Take care. Bye.